record it. Yep. So I can
Okay,
do
so
it.
let's start back from what you said, because then I can share this with Joanne and she can share it with Paul.
Right.
For me to convey everything on with a lot of stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
let's start from the beginning. Okay, so
Okay, so what I was sharing was that for 8 years, I've been involved in the research, design, development, and embodiment of a whole systems platform for co-creation. And that has involved a lot of work on things like social architecture and systems, living systems design and software, user interface and all that. And none of that, despite my enjoyment and passion and contribution, it still has not been my deepest, deepest, deepest heart's desire. Because I've been doing storytelling and marketing and narrative for our project, even though I've been contributing to these other pieces. Um, and I was saying that last year I had a new little bit of awakening to my deepest heart's desire, which stems from the fact that when I was 19, I went to film school for the first semester to be a film director. So I have this love of film and storytelling. And while I was there, I had this spiritual emergency / psychotic episode, depending on which culture or which paradigm you're part of. And that's a long story, but it's part of my mission that I was put into the mental health system and had a really tough decade. So that's part of my backstory and another mission of mine. But last year, I watched the last 3 minutes of a 2015 movie called Tomorrowland, which relates to, I think, what you said, Joanne, or your sister was talking about, these carnivals and festivals. So, yeah, in 2015, there was a Disney movie called Tomorrowland. Um, and the movie aside, the last 3 minutes are fantastic to me, totally inspiring. It's these kids have to go out and find the others, the future, the ones that haven't given up. And they go through this portal and they have these tokens for Tomorrowland in the movie, and they start giving these tokens to all these different kinds of people. And in the movie, it's quite beautiful, actually. There's white people, black people, young, women, old, music, chemists, 3D printers, conservation, and this whole final montage scene where they all mysteriously see this token, and when they all reach for the token in the montage, they all grab it. And at that time, they all wake up and they're in this cornfield, which is a cornfield, crop field, by the way, if you want to get symbolic. And they all wake up and there's all these different types of people looking at each other, like wondering why they've been brought there. Because the premise, and then in the background is kind of this futuristic city, because the premise is part of the premise of that movie was what if all of the artists and scientists and humanitarians could get together and build the world they wanted to without bureaucracy and greed and all that kind of stuff. So when I saw that movie, Tomorrowland, that last 3 minutes, and then based on the fact that our whole systems platform for co-creation was called the Together Life System, I was like, yes, I want to make Togetherland. And what Togetherland simply is on some simple level is what my question of what if I could make a sequel to the last 3 minutes of Tomorrowland, not the whole movie and all of its premises, just literally the last 3 minutes. Like, what if that were to continue into real life, immersive, interactive, like an actual real life narrative, not just a fantasy? Because why would we want to make a movie about the future when we can make the future? Like, why do we have this boundary of like what's on the screen as a projection of our deepest hopes and fears and our fantasies and our shadows and all that kind of stuff? And I thought to myself, maybe the big screen was too small for Bret Mister Full of It, right? Like I'm such an ambitious like person. Maybe I never became a Hollywood director because number one, I wasn't going to go into that jungle. You know, Hollywood's a
right.
whole animal, and it was not for a sensitive, visionary like person like me. It was probably never going to work out anyway. And really, now that we've gone into the realm of conscious evolution and spirituality, along with art and science and business and all this stuff, making a movie on a screen that takes 3 years to produce, that comes out 3 years later, and it really only produces a legacy of t-shirts, DVDs, games, that wouldn't really be big enough for me. I want to create and co-direct a reality. I want to have an experience on this planet. So Togetherland is my aspiration to create an interactive, immersive, planetary scale, what I call transmedium, not transmedia, because it's going to use the mediums of peace, the medium of education, the medium of economics, the medium of spirituality, the medium of life itself. So I want to go beyond this idea of just transmedia, like not just VR and AR, but what happens when you keep transcending and including all of the innovations and expanding the etymological understanding of technology. Really, you know, there's indigenous technologies, there's spiritual technologies, there's emotional technologies, and then there's physical technologies like all of these gadgets and all these things, and all of them are good. But what happens when you put them all into a pot and stir them together is something quite emergent and novel, and it really can't be contained. It can only be continually iterated and continually co-created. So Togetherland is about blurring all the lines between like cast, crew, and audience. So we have a kind of narrative. I wouldn't say an umbrella. It's not about this idea that everyone does the same thing. It's just my offering as a context and a framework. So these ideas of transmedium production, infinite reality gamification, and regenerative filmmaking. And so I'm like a concept architect. And there is a main plot line I'll share, like that's very ubiquitous, because I want people to come along and tell their own stories and their own narratives through the lens of this central plot line, which is a group of people coming together, to go from competition to co-creation, scarcity to prosperity, and from fear to love. But other than that, and a certain core values, like if someone wanted to tell a story of their permaculture space or their healing space or whatever it is, it really doesn't matter as long as it's basically aligned with those things. And it's just like this, it's like a planetary scale movie set, for lack of a better word. And I was thinking, if we spend $500 million to make Avengers, why wouldn't we take $500 million and make 100 real sets, quote, props and locations where the location and the set are not fake? They're actually like regenerative things that provide healing or jobs or food. Why do we create these sets that are never used again? They create fake toys as props for movies. Like, why would we create a fake technology that lights up the city when we can actually invest in the Sim Harriman and other people and actually deliver solar? Like, why wouldn't we just make a living movie that's protopian, rather than building like, oh, wouldn't it be great if the world was like this, and then make a movie about it? Like, we can do better than that. And it's all just about changing it's just the shift in mindset. I mean, I think like James Cameron and, Leonardo DiCaprio, not that I care about famous people, but I just saw Hugh Jackman talking about non-duality. Hugh Jackman, of all people, who played the greatest showman, because I say Togetherland, to get back to your point, is like the greatest whole on earth, WHOLE. And the people that like me are ringmasters, because ringmasters are the ones that bring attention to all of the acts and celebrate all of the different acts that are happening in that carnival, in that circus. So it's like way bigger than all that. And but I thought about what's the first thing I can do? Like, how do I take a bite and a chunk out of this? And because of having conversations with people, and then you even coming into the picture with Paul and his work, I was like, I have to start with the children. Like the end of Tomorrowland is the beginning, because it starts with children going out into the world. So for me, the first episode or the origin of Togetherland is really like the children of Togetherland. Um, and there's many ways to go about that, but I did envision, in terms of what Paul is talking about, VR, AR, is really like finding some physical locations where we actually build that thing from the movie, like a portal. So the kids on this side are in domes and they're learning. That's where they learn peace literacy and alchemy, because we've all got friends that have different programs for children. So we have an awesome network of all different, like a buffet of like youth leadership, healing, alchemy, peace literacy. Like when we put all of those things as a buffet, with some key things, like peace is a key thing, like personal alchemy is a key thing. So I don't do education, I'm going to leave that to the people I bring in, but I'm just painting a picture. So the kids and the parents, the inner child of all the parents as well, kind of like work together on this side of this portal. And when they sort of graduate, like for me, and they would use VR, by the way, and AR in this side. And then I don't know what it is yet, but I know that they go through this portal and they're given like their graduation tokens. And when they go through that portal, like this is why I want to design it with people. I'm saying like something super crazy magical happens, because they can't see what's on the other side of it, where there's mentors that actually take these kids around the world with their families to give other kids these tokens, and other older innovators around the planet. Instead of these innovators, like, barbers of the world, being invited by people like us, and the evolutionary elders, we send like a bunch of 8 and 12 and 15-year-olds to go around the planet giving Irvin Laszlo and other people these tokens that says, come to one of our sets and come co-create this world. And it could go on, but that's the first thing I'm seeing. And for me, it's really important to not only use VR, because I'm a little bit nervous about kids always having these headsets on and not being in nature and not being with each other. But I have seen the power of VR for healing and the anxiety. To me, the most important thing in the VR is to help people with those kind of conditions and experiences, and to create simulations. So like they can, so it's easier to test ideas out in VR. And if you've ever seen X-Men, I don't know if you've seen it, Cindy, but Paul and Joan and them might have seen it. The main guy from X-Men who has the Xavier Academy for gifted kids, he has the ability to put this helmet on. It's called Cerebro, and he goes into this room, and when he puts the helmet on, because he's psychic, it amplifies his skill, and on all the dome, he sees all of the gifted people around the world. So for me, I want these kids, one of the VR tricks is for them to be able to put on the VR and see all of the other locations and sets around the world and all the other kids who are doing what they're doing, so they feel like they're this whole interconnected, like Marvel universe of all of these kids who are here to find the others. So that's in a nutshell. Thanks for listening. A little bit long, but that's kind of the picture. And there's all different details and possibilities, but that's why we need a bigger team and the resources to figure some stuff out and all.
Mhm.
But that's the dream. It's just a new story. It's like it allows the life on Earth to really become a play. That's what I'm calling Togetherland a conscious living play,
Mhm.
because it's about playing. It's about the play of drama and understanding that we create the reality that we want to live in. And I really want the kids to learn personally to become unique self symphony members, as Barbara would say. I do have some people that want to teach kids to be entrepreneurs, but for me, that's about 100 years behind personally. I'm not opposed to entrepreneurship. I wouldn't leave it out, but I see a lot of kind of older white man colonization, I would say, because that's how they've gotten rich and famous. So they want to mentor all these young kids to become entrepreneurs. But I
Mhm.
actually think kids nowadays can become something even more transclusive. Like they can still create businesses and stuff, but I just think they can have a bigger vision. Like, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur and a philanthropist and a healer, and an artist and a visionary? Like, what if you wrapped all those things up into, as Barbara said, the like Homo universalis, Like, so I've changed the word co-creator to TEUR, co-creator, like an entrepreneur or an auteur. So
Okay.
yeah, so Togetherland are filled with co-creators. These are
Uh-huh.
people that are ambidextrous, they're polymathic, they're Renaissance people. So they're not just an entrepreneur, but if they need to access the entrepreneurial spirit or access the entrepreneurial understanding in order to get something off the ground, of course they would do that. But I don't want to peg people into like be an entrepreneur and save the world, because I think that's gotten us into more trouble than it's helped personally. So I hope the kids can learn to be empowered human beings, and I know that they have something much bigger to do than I think most of us would understand, really, even possibly. From the conscious evolution perspective, that I think they're going to kind of do miracles,
Mm.
and it's our
Yeah.
job to help them get there. Like,
Yeah, I agree completely. The whole time, several times when you were talking about your vision, my whole body was tingling, and I mean, literally tingling about three different occasions when you were talking about your vision. So to me, that's spirit
thank you.
validating.
I do
That's
feel good.
spirit valid.
I do feel good about like my obviously I've got a million more things to learn and onion layers to peel, but at the moment I'm super, as Barbara would say with Syntony, at the moment, because I decided to put more intention and attention on my deeper heart's desire, like to
Hmm.
speak to what you've been doing with Ole, like I'm
Hmm.
I'm up leveling my own authenticity, like my own connection to what I'm here to do. And I feel like I've been getting good feedback in general. Like I know it is a big vision and it's going to take a lot, but I'm on point. Like and I don't know how it all looks, but I
Yeah,
know I know
you
I
don't
feel
need.
really excited. I feel like I'm so much closer this year than ever to like why God sent me here, and God really sent me here to rebirth philanthropy and mental health. So underneath all of this for me, what motivates and drives me is to create a world beyond money really and beyond transaction, which is for me a rebirth of the idea of philanthropy, what it means to love humanity, and love each other. And then my mental health experience like super drives me, to change that part of the system. So underneath, in a way, God sent me here to do those things, but he put me in in the body of a ringmaster, like someone who loves to talk and someone who loves to conceptualize and someone who loves, my greatest gift is speaking and then writing. I'm not like a graphic designer. I'm not a virtual reality or an engineer. Like this is my gift, is to talk and to ideate and to be excited about what I love to do. So yeah, I'm feeling
Mhm.
good. I'm glad that you had some tingles because it helps me. Like I am tuning into something that I believe is what I'm meant to be doing. So I'm really happy about that.
And Brett, the biggest thing that, I got so many big things out of Barbara, but when we're excited, when we get lit up, we know we're on our path. When that thing that lights us up, we know that we're on our path. And as long as we keep doing what lights us up, we'll be led, even though we don't know, we can't see all the way down the path, but just what's in front of us, trusting that each step we take that lights us up unfolds us to that destination, whatever that destination is. Because I mean, I think back on how far I've come in the last 20 years, the steps that I've taken out of my enthusiasm and excitement, having no
Mm,
idea where it was leading me, where, here I was when I think back at, I'm trying to think, when I was about 44 at the time, when a friend gave me a crystal treatment. That's what really lit me up and set me on this path that I've been on the last 20 years. And that I had no idea that that one crystal treatment was going to send me on a path where I was taking healing courses because I needed to know more about this energy healing stuff. That led me to buy a commercial building to open
mm,
up a healing art studio that ran successfully for 5 years. Then the
wow.
next step was my bigger vision, which was to have a retreat center for women, to have a soft place to fall, to be held and uplifted. And then, so we sold that, bought this beautiful place up in Huntsville. And then that led me to Barbara Marks Hubbard, the 52-week course. Didn't know where that was going, which led me to life purpose groups, which led me to this beautiful, group of people that are a part of changing the world. I mean, who knew that one day my life was going to change the course of my life? And again, I could have never imagined in a million years I was going to do this, buy that, sell this, buy this, move there. Just amazing. So you don't need to know where it's going. Just keep following the thing that lights you up, yeah. And then when you're around other people and it's lighting them up, like Barbara said, super sex, which I was teasing Joanne and Paul and Jerry about that. It's like, we get together and we're so excited. That's what's happening. We're having super sex. We're not making babies. We're co-creating together ideas. So
Beautiful.
yeah, I don't know where this is going either, but I just know I'm like, interesting that that's what caught my attention was Paul's virtual reality, and of course peace literacy being in line with Barbara. And he talks about electric light, which being in like with Barbara technology. And then so let's see where this goes. And when I talk to Joanne today, I'm going to send her our conversation that we had to say, like, do you see Bret being of value somewhere, like, in this next stage, having to do with the storytelling with the VR, because my
Yeah.
passion is, we have to reach the children. We have to reach the children.
And I'll just add that for her, just because she'll be able to see this. This past year, I took part in the Design Science Studio out of the Buckminster Fuller Institute with 144 other amazing heart-led visionaries and scientists and artists. And so we automatically have a group of people who are some of the best in the world with VR and AR and experiential design, like literally in my kind of fractal now, that are kind of my friend. Well, I mean, my friends, like in a more intimate way than I wouldn't have known them, like, last year. And they are also obviously connected by one degree to some of the most amazing people in the industry for all of these topics. So as soon as there's the possibility of making an invitation to that group and saying, hey, we're looking for this type of help, like I'm sure, I mean, just like Paul would have his own network and his contacts, but I would say these people are especially suited because they care about the regenerative movement, and a lot of them already work with children. So that's just obviously, like you're saying, it's no coincidence that it
Mm.
just happened. And I brought Togetherland into that project, which is why it's been developing. So instead of working all the time on our governance of our whole platform, Andrea's been working. She's found a group of people, and I just advise there more than, and I've spent more time cultivating if anything, just the intention, like, of this Togetherland. So I like the way you described your, by the way, your experience. I often, because I do love actually Hollywood movies, and I do think there are some that were worth their money, let's say, like Schindler's List and Star Wars, and like there's some movies that thank God they were made because they actually left a legacy to me of
Mhm.
something beyond the transcendental. Although most films, if you look at them, are not like that, of course. But I always used to laugh at myself, and what you described reminded me that I was a little bit like a Forrest Gump. So Forrest Gump is like my top five, one of my top five favorite movies. But just how he ran around the planet, like following his impulse, and his instinct. Like he wasn't the smartest person and all that, but he knew what love was. That was the famous line he said to Jenny, "I may not be a smart man, but I know what love is." So
Wow.
so because of that, he was always like this special guy. They called him retarded and all that, but the beauty of the movie was that he would follow his heart like that, and he would just bump into all of these things and save lives and create businesses and all this. Just it's almost like he was blind, deaf, and dumb to the rational. Like the metaphor to me is that he was blind, deaf, and dumb to conditioning
Mm.
and to rationality as a dominating thing, and logic as a dominant. And because of that, he just went by his navigation system of his heart. And I quite often, because I'm the type of person who doesn't have the experience of for example, seeing auras or feeling energy directly. Like a lot of my friends, and people I work with are more sensitive in those ways, but I'm more of a gut instinct person.
Mm.
So I guess on a personal level, I've always identified with with Forrest Gump as this wonderful, naively innocent in the most important ways. Because we can't. Let's like the preposterous quote that I saw in your email that we shared with you.
From
There's no,
Hillary.
yeah, yeah,
That from
there's,
Hillary.
yeah. That's I gave her that because I came across that. Um, because that's the most important thing. I'm looking for preposterous people like Paul. We have to be preposterous. We have to go into the realm of what seems impossible or that does not yet exist. And we have to cross that boundary and bring it back. And then, like that quote says, if we're all going to be honest, all of the most amazing things that help humanity always come from the preposterous first. They're always coming from that. We all know that. Even the scientists and the psychologists would agree as far as the collective unconscious and all that. And Nicholas, even speaking of Toronto, up where you're from, Nicholas Tesla lit up the 1893 World's Fair in Chicago, or was it in Niagara? He lit it up with the AC power. Like when his invention of the alternate current power first came online, he literally lit up the 1893 World's Fair with it. Like flicked the switch, and like all of the lights were like based on AC power. So that's always been an inspiration for me as well. Like I want to light these Togetherland sets up, like with all the
Mm.
alternative energies, and so they're all demonstration sites. It's a little bit of a Trojan horse too. Let's be honest. Like I feel like this might be the most artivist. I say activism and art. It's the most artivist way to start making a dent, because everything else has been failing, like trying to fit in or trying to be entrepreneurs to me or get venture cap. Like we've got to get even more creative to me in order to bring in the new, because it has so much resistance. So
Mhm.
this to me is one possible framework or contextualization. It's just it's not like the tagline is it's not a movie, it's just a play. It's just a play. We're just creating a play. We're just creating
Mhm.
like transmedia. It's no big deal. Like, it's nothing. It's just like everything else.
Mhm.
So yeah, I'm excited. Thank you for being open, and thank you for sharing with everyone there. And I hear
Yeah.
you on the peace literacy in the peace room, and these are some critical elements, like when a body is forming, because we're always looking at biomimicry in our platform. Like there's certain organs and elements that really need to come online first to be the foundation to graft the rest upon. So peace, nonviolence, and peace are obviously is among the most, and healing that kind of patriarchal, dominating, competitive nature, and healing all the anxiety around that, is definitely one of the more important features of everything we're all going to do. So it seems most appropriate to be connecting with Paul on that level.
Yeah, and what Barbara always talked about it. Well, and what I loved about Paul's presentation about Maslow, he's upending Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is what Barbara saw, that we need to find out what our purpose is, and that's once people find their purpose, and their passion, they're going to live a more full life, and they're not going to want to, like, shoot or kill or whatever, because yeah, so that, like, again, so much,
Mm,
oh, my hair's real driving nuts. So much of this is just tying in, Brett.
yeah,
And
yeah.
I have to tell, yeah, it's all tying in. And I do have to tell you, like, the funny thing is, when you talk about um uh Forrest Gump, well, okay, so I had my aha moment with Stephen Donaco when I was at the Barbara's. We were sitting having lunch at one of the breaks, because I remember keep thinking, like, how did I get here? All these people. I always think of myself as not like intelligent, because I didn't, graduate from high school. I'm a dropout, although I got my GED, and then I went to university to be a social worker. But again, I couldn't get statistics, so I dropped out of social work.
Right.
So I never considered myself like smart, because I think a smart is somebody that's like a university degree, all that stuff. So I would always think of the smart people up here, and I'm like down here. And then when I was at Barbara's, in the middle of the meeting, I realized, wow, oh, that's where I fit in, because I've always acted from my heart. And we need people that act from my heart, but their heart, and we also need people that act from their intellect, right? So I finally went, oh wow, I do fit in here, to balance it out. So thanks for reiterating that, because again, that's what served me well, is just following my heart, even though a lot of people thought I was crazy,
Yeah.
crazy. What? Opening a healing art studio? What? Like,
Well, you've
so.
always done it. You're just not giving yourself a deserved pat on the back for that. And that was my biggest journey actually as an artist, by the way, because I don't know there's some kind of saying like comparison is the death of art or something like that. So I
Mhm,
used to compare myself to all my favorite poets and songwriters and all that and filmmakers, and I never thought I could be good enough, or I was always like you, comparing myself to that until the day I realized like, but what I am is what I've been striving for. Like I don't, like I may never get a round of applause or an Oscar award, or like I may never be performing in front of 50,000 people, which was my prior definition of success. Like if I
mhm,
make a good enough song, I'll be in front of people. And it was all based on good intentions. Like I wanted to know what it was like, because I love music. I love live music. So sometimes when I'm at a live show, I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what it feels like to be on stage providing that, like
mhm,
that side of the experience. But you need the audience and the live. You can't have just the band or just the audience. So clearly they're equally as important, but it also is a type of experience to be the band supplying that side of the equation. So I always wanted to know, like, what would it be like to have 50,000 people singing a song I wrote, not for my ego as much as for like, what does it feel like to have your art like be received and amplified like that. And I, at some point, thought if I didn't have that, I would be a failure. But one day I had a revelation. I thought, I've done it. Like, I am a visionary in my own way. Like, and if a book is never written about me or I don't win an award, it doesn't mean that I don't see the future or that and I'm not tapped into it or that I can't help contribute to the materialization of that future that I clearly see. And I thought to myself, I bet you the angels are all like applauding right now when I'm having this feeling, and that's way more than 50,000 people. So it's
mhm,
kind of like I had this moment, and I thought that's the end of me comparing myself to all these other people, or waiting for Richard Branson or Elon Musk to be the spiritual philanthropy that I see. Thank God my lovely wife said to me one day a couple of years ago, like, you can't wait for them to be a spiritual philanthropist. That's the title I give to my idea of philanthropy. She's like, you're here to be the spiritual philanthropist. So just keep doing what you do and keep getting there. And someday, if that's what God wants, like that's what you'll be. And it's not for other people to for you to be angry at Richard Branson. Like he's here for whatever he's here for, and he might even do things differently someday when you get to talk to him. But really, don't wait for these people to do what you would want to do. Like
mhm.
be the thing that you're talking about. So it's been quite a journey, but I love hearing. I mean, obviously we've spoken a couple times, but I wasn't aware of all those things about you. So I'm really glad to hear more about you.
Yeah, that's my story. And when I think of this, my husband and I built this construction company. It's
Yeah.
very successful. We're transferring it to the employees. We're like, how did we do this? Well, I don't know. We had to put food on the table, and we just, put our nose to the grindstone, and here we are 30 years later. And yeah, so again, we just, well, we always, worked from our heart, and, built a company that we treated customers and employees the way we would want to be treated. So again,
Right.
just, built it with common sense, but been blessed now, and now we receive blessings to support, causes that we believe in. So
Right, that's amazing. Which is
yeah,
another cool thing too, because hopefully someday you can help build some of these sets and these regenerative film locations and sets because you have all that expertise. I mean, I wouldn't know how to do some of that. I wouldn't have.
in what, build sets? What are you talking about? I can't build a set, but yeah,
Well,
we can.
but you know how to carry that out. You know how to oversee. Like if we wanted to build a set on 100 acres with an awesome hempcrete and solar, like you guys would certainly know how to like let me know what to look out for and who would be the best people to do those kind of things. So
Mhm.
and
Yeah,
none of that is wasted, is it? Like all of
no,
our experiences.
definitely not. Definitely not. Okay, well, let's see where this goes. So I'm going to, you send me the recording, and anything else you'd like to add before I?
Nah, I've said enough. Thank you.
Yeah, no, that was excellent, Brett. So let's see where it goes.
Yeah,
I'll share it with Joanne, and I see them today at 1, and then I'll send her the video and say, hey, you and Jerry have a look at this and see if there's something here, because
yeah.
I just feel like we've
Yeah,
there's
and there's stuff, obviously there's stuff popping up all over. We have a friend, one of our former project philanthropists wants to create a wisdom village in India. He's got a friend there with 100 acres. Um, so everyone's tuning in, as you would like, as we all imagine, like refining things like, oh, okay, this is really about the kids. You know, it's about regenerative. It's about, peace, love, and co-creation. Like for as far as I'm concerned, the universe as a whole wants to have an experience. Like there's free will, but it wants to have this experience of creativity and love and prosperity and peace. It wants to know like itself that way. Like I don't for me that's the impulse of like the evolutionary impulse. It actually, despite all of the potentials, which includes war and poverty because we have free will, it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that the whole doesn't have this impulse. And I think it certainly has an impulse and it wants to have this experience and test the theory that it would be boring if we had eternal and infinite joy and friendship and creativity. A lot of people said, wouldn't that be boring? I've said, I don't know. I think I'd like to test that theory out.
So would I. So would I. I think the universe is craving it too, for sure.
Yeah, right on.
When you send me the link, send me that little blurb about what you said about you just did a course. What was that course you just did with the
The,
people?
the Design Science Studio out of the Buckminster Fuller Institute.
Yeah, share me a little bit about that, because that's where I think there might be something. There's Brett.
Yep,
You
cool.
know,
I'll send
on
you,
that.
I'll put this video unlisted on YouTube. Um, and in the video description, because no one will see it unless they actually have the link that I give you.
Yeah, you
Like,
have to fill me in on this stuff. Okay.
yeah, it's just like going to YouTube link. It's just that it's not when it's unlisted unless the link itself was shared, like somebody won't find it. Like you can't just
Okay.
search for it or something. It's kind of private, but without a password. So it's just a little bit easier. So you'll
Mhm.
literally just click on the link like you would click on any link to watch a YouTube video.
Okay.
And in the video description, I will put a couple notes. Like here's a link to the Design Science Studio. Here's a
Mhm.
link to the Togetherland. Here's a link to the Tomorrowland 3-minute video and whatnot. So then it's
Perfect.
all just right there.
Yeah, perfect. Perfect. Because then I could also share that with my sister too, Jen, who I plan on bringing in on the Canadian side to
Yeah.
help.
And there's clearly something happening with the whole Canadian Toronto because I'm still working with Hillary and Romy on the call to the mother. So there's some weird thing calling me to I mean, I'm from New Jersey on the East Coast. It would be quite lovely to actually potentially live even on the East Coast and have these different things happening that are my deepest calling. So I'm in the back of my mind, I'm like, I wonder if like something will happen where we have an ability to like go between like New Jersey and Toronto and all
Mhm.
that. I don't know, but in the back of my mind, it's a little bit like, oh, I wonder what will happen. Because I miss the America some and the East Coast.
Yeah.
The politics and all that is weird, but the people of North America are awesome. Like, and the
Mhm.
territory is awesome. So I miss it to some degree.
Well, let's see what the universe does.
Yes, let's see.
Hold.
Awesome. Big love to you, Cindy. Thank you.
Oh, same here. Thank you so much, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay. Bye.
Okay. Say hi to Andrea.
I will.
Okay. We'll see you.
See ya.